Hello, and thank you for joining me. We're here and we're going to be talking about the decision tree model with sklearn. Machine learning tips, and we're going to be looking at different ways to build the decision tree as well as analyze it, kind of get to understand how it's making its predictions. Okay. So here, going over the red wine quality data set, you probably have seen this before. Pretty common data set. Today we'll do a little bit different than the typical stuff to deal with it today, but standard data set and very simple data set to work with. Lots of linear regressions in this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my features my target. So this is as it is. It's an integer prediction at this point, or sorry, it's a continuous variable, a regression problem, not a classification problem. And we'll do some upsampling to make it a little bit more fair. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this as my features, my target. I'm putting this into a list to make sure that y stays as a data frame. So y section in our list, we'll keep it as a data frame. And then slicing out at the x features, putting x and y into the train test split and making train test x and y. I'm going to get my variables right here of my values of my target right here. 1, 2, 3, count of the values. Getting this index, I'm just getting a list of the variables in order. Then what happens is if I iterate through this list, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out the indexes of the quality. I'm going to then select from the x, select from the y of the indexes with quality y, or what is it, 3, 6, 7. So getting the them, then I'm going to take a sample of 300 of each of those. So just kind of upsampling with replacement, so bootstrap sampling with replacement of the x and the y based on those index values, because so that we can make it a little bit more even. If you look at these values, I didn't plot this today, but they're very heavily weighted between 5, 6, and 7, and there's not a lot of representation of 4, 4, 8, and 3. So this just kind of makes them all equally weighted, so we should have a better chance of predicting the regression. So it was all just to make it a little bit easier to predict regression. I'm going to standardize it as well, or standardizing. So upsampled, standardizing, and then into the decision tree. So pretty easy. Decision tree dot fit score tree dot score train test tree dot score train test, get a train test score. Very common problem that we find with decision trees is that they overfit on the train and then they predict pretty badly on the test set. So completely overfit on the train and then does a really bad prediction on our test set. So it's one of the times we really have to control the hyperparameters in pre-pruning, and post-pruning to deal with the this overfitting problem. The ability for it's just to really kind of grow into every nook and cranny of your data and map your data completely, but then not generalize enough to make good predictions about what happens in the future. So really good at mapping randomness, but we have to learn to control it to create predictions that are going to be valid for the on future data. Okay, and so here, kind of looking through, you can do this in a grid search. I find this very helpful to really see what is happening as we go through these hyperparameters. So we're going to iterate through all of the max depths. So this is one of the common ones that we'll use for pre-pruning. I'm going to build a train test list of scores. I'm going to fit my model. So as I run through this, I'll go through from 1 to 15. So max depth 1, 2, 3, up to 14. So for depth and max lips, I'm going to fit my model. I'm going to append my two scores. I'm going to plot the decision tree. I'm going to plot the line plot of the train score, test score, the title. And so what you can see here is as my test score kind of peaked up at about 5 or so, and then the train score keeps getting good as my max depth keeps as allowed to just grow into every nook and cranny of the data. It can just map everything essentially. But you can see as it starts to fit to randomness, it starts to become worse at making predictions. Okay, so pretty easy here. And so you can see really fat max depth at 5 is really all you really almost never really even want to go down to a depth of 5 is something that I would say I normally go even smaller than that when we're dealing with this in terms of dealing with decision trees and random forests. But I think 5 is a good maybe limit, or probably the higher end of what you should be trying. Min sample. So this is another way to control the overfitting. And so what we can see here is as we're same loop, just from the tree for the min sample splits, the split going from 2 to 90 right here. And so you can see the test score starts to go up until we get a bigger. So this is really what it's saying is we need more samples to do a split. So really, and you would see that as we get to a certain point, it's not really helping anymore. We've got our test score where we start splitting at 60. We need 60 more to make a split. This actually seems like a good place to kind of converge. They never really converge because we're not able to. Doing this as a regression problem makes this a very challenging problem, and so we're never able to get a very good score on this data set. But I wanted it to be challenging to really see, so that we could see these differences as it evolves and develops, gets a better test score as the training score comes down. And so it will be a plateau, but I think this is something better than doing in a grid search where you just see what the best score was. You don't get a sense. This plateau, really, okay, so yeah, the best score is right here. But knowing that this plateau is so flat, well, basically flat for such a long period of time, it might be better to really, settle around something like max sample splits around 40 or something like that before going up to here. And then looking at max features, so this works on a percentage, so going from 0.1, so 10% up to 100%, and going up by 0.01. Because it didn't really have a huge uh, impact. I find max features is a good one to try. Doesn't necessarily make a huge difference. It would be a little bit more interesting to try in a random forest, where it's going to be resampling the number of features, the percentage of features that go into the final model. And we don't have a lot of features, so it wasn't going to make a huge, big change. It's a good one to change, play with. I find it tricky to get it to really be doing anything more than like a 95%. Who I was hoping to show is what I usually find is a good range is where the max features is set to really quite high. I find that min sample splits or min samples can be quite, those up quite a bit higher, but this feature you actually almost want, it's good to build a tree on most of the features, it seems like to be the case. So those are all pre-processing techniques, and then basically just limit the growth before it starts growing. We kind of built trees and saw how it evolved at every step. So they look very similar when we call pre-pruning and post-pruning, but the one that we would typically consider, although we're going to test it the same way, is the CCP alpha, which allows, which will cause something very similar to the min sample splits, is in it allows parts of the tree to grow and other parts not to grow, not based on the number of samples that are in a node, but based on the value that each step is adding in. And so what we're doing here, I'm just basically looking at the whole huge range of the CCP values, 0.001 up to 0.01. I'm going up by a very small fraction. So I plot quite a few of these. I will go over, and you can see that as we turn up the CCP alpha at certain points, we get more of a convergence right here. And so this is, again, allowing one tree to grow, one side of the tree to grow versus the other tree. And you'll notice that this actually looks very similar to the min sample splits because it's doing a similar thing, right? They're never able to converge, but these essentially allow sides of the trees to grow when the other side stops growing, whereas max depth just truncates it and says, oh, you're only going down to a certain point. I would say that I would prefer to use min sample splits or CCP alpha or a real model, because if there's enough data to support this side of the tree continuing to split, then you should let it do that, right? There's not enough data to support that. But where there stops being enough data, don't let it grow. So, you go to max depth of 5, but really it only makes sense to go to 4 on a side of the tree. I think that's more natural almost in the min sample splits. And I usually find that you get better difference playing with the min sample splits. CCP alpha basically works the same. I find this good just iterating through to find a good value. A little bit more telling when you see the plots versus just a standard grid search. But they work very similar. CCP alpha is traditionally a little bit harder to tune properly than the min sample splits, but they should do very similar things in the end. So, and this is a good technique to plot all of your hyperparameters to really start to understand what impact they're really having on. So thank you very much for joining me today. It was great to see you. Don't forget to keep practicing, and I will see you next time.